thank you very much for that. And now we turn back to proposition to Michael Nugent.
Well, thank you very much for inviting me here, and I'd like to start by reminding you that the opposite of extreme is not bad. The opposite of extreme is moderate. So what the motion today is asking us is whether in a society with religion we will have at least some people who have beliefs and behaviour that are not moderate. We're not saying that all religious people are extremists. We're not saying that all extremism is caused by religion. We're not saying that religion is the only cause of extremism. We're saying that on aggregate, when you have religion in a society, you will have people whose beliefs and behaviours are not moderate. And that's because if your beliefs and behaviour are based on faith, then you're removing yourself to at least some degree from the checks and balances that are normally provided by reason and evidence and compassion and empathy and fairness and justice. And if you genuinely believe that it is the creator of the universe that is telling you to put those beliefs ahead of reason and evidence and compassion and empathy, then that's a very powerful motivation to do those things that remove you from being moderate. I'll give you some examples of extreme beliefs and behaviours caused by religion, because I want to make clear that we're not just talking about cutting people's heads off or throwing them off tall buildings because you disagree with what they believe. We're talking about things that could be good or bad or just silly. You know, I came here today from Drumcondra. Now, if I told you that I'd set out yesterday and rolled here from Drumcondra, you'd probably think that my beliefs are not very moderate or my behaviour. But that's what some people do in India. There's a guy in India called Lotan Baba who has rolled across India for 20,000 miles because of his religious beliefs. Who would argue that that is not an extreme belief and extreme behaviour? Choosing to be celibate for life is extreme. You know, choosing to be celibate for a week or whatever might be fair enough, but deciding for life, you know, it's not the most moderate of beliefs. Fasting for long periods of time when you don't have to, and when there's no physical benefit is an extreme behaviour. Most of us would think, and rightly so, I'll take it when I just finish this section. Most of us would believe that Jains are very peaceful and moderate. In fact, they've been described as the only religion that the more extreme they are, the more peaceful they are. But Jains, you might have seen the story recently where a Jain family let one of their children, a young child, die by fasting for 2 months for religious beliefs. That's extreme. Believing that a piece of bread is literally the body and blood of a 2,000-year-old Jewish carpenter is an extreme belief. Believing that Muhammad flew on a winged horse is an extreme belief. Believing that Joseph Smith spoke to God through his hat and that God gave him magic underpants to protect him is an extreme belief. Believing that the creator of the universe impregnated a virgin in order to give birth to himself so that he could die and come back to life and write a book about it is an extreme belief. It doesn't have to be bad. The opposite of extremism is not badness. The opposite of extremism is moderation. I'll take your point now.
Yes. What about in the case of fasting where people use it for a principle or political or social cause? For example, Gandhi.
Yeah. Well, I'm not quite sure. Are you asking was Gandhi extreme?
If religious, maybe a little, but perhaps religious leaders who maybe want to show that they're willing to debase themselves in order to prove that they're not some other, that they're not some higher belief, that they're not living in luxury at the expense.
Yeah, I think most religious people, and I would include ISIS in this, or at least some people involved in ISIS, most religious people do believe that they're carrying out their extreme behaviour for good reasons. Almost by definition, they believe that the creator of the universe is telling them that this is the right thing to do. And so you're not talking about bad people most of the time. You're talking about good people or people who have the normal mix of good and bad, doing things that they wouldn't normally do if they allowed themselves to have the checks and balances of reason and evidence. And I'll tell you 2 reasons why that happens. And the first is that religion corrupts our sense of reality. And the reason that religion corrupts our sense of reality is that normally what we do when we're asked whether we believe that something is true, whether it's a factual thing or a moral thing, normally what we do is we apportion our beliefs to the evidence, and the more improbable a belief becomes, the higher we raise the bar of evidence that we require in order to believe it. But with religion we do the exact opposite. The more improbable the claim is, we lower the bar of evidence to the extent that we ask ourselves to believe things that are not only implausible but literally untestable, based on what somebody wrote in a book 2,000 years ago or 1,300 years ago, or whatever period of time your own particular religion dictates. And the second reason that religion causes extreme beliefs and behaviour is that it corrupts our sense of morality. Because we have a sense of morality because we're social animals. And that sense of morality has evolved based on attributes like empathy and compassion and fairness and justice and cooperation and reciprocity, because cooperation is as important as competition to survival. But what religion does is it corrupts that natural morality by saying, no, you have to do this, even though it's clear that it's not the compassionate or empathetic or just thing to do because somebody said so in a book. And the most obvious example, the most literal example of that is from the Quran. And I'll leave you with this particular passage from the Quran, from 24:2. As for the adulteress and the adulterer, flog each of them with 100 stripes, and let not compassion with them keep you from carrying out the law of God. And let a group of believers witness their chastisement. Now clearly what happened there was, in the first version of that, flog the adulterers 100 times, there were some Muslims who recognised that was extreme and didn't want to do it because of their compassion. And so they had to add in, and don't let your compassion stop you. And also get a whole load of guys to watch to make sure that you're doing it. So even in their own book, they recognised that they needed further than just the simple instruction of the creator of the universe in order to get people to do things that they knew, that they recognised were extreme. So not only is religion not needed for morality, it actively corrupts morality. And it causes people to believe things that they wouldn't ordinarily believe if they subjected themselves to the normal checks and balances of reason and evidence. And therefore it is inevitable that in a society where you have religion, that at least some people will display extreme beliefs and behaviour. Thank you very much.